Wonderful. So this is the second session in a series of classes all about how to establish a joyful daily practice. And so the premise behind the class is that you've already studied the Dharma for some time and that maybe you already have some kind of daily practice, or maybe you're new to the Dharma and you're interested in setting up, sort of a consistent practice, but you're not quite sure where to start. And so the emphasis is more on how to do a daily practice versus the reasons and the whys, so I'll touch a little bit on that, but primarily it's more like a hands-on type of class. So that being said, this is obviously just skimming the surface of a very, very vast and extensive set of teachings. And so I've put an emphasis also on including a lot of references so you can go back, and if something doesn't quite ring true, or you think, oh, I need to understand that better before I try to engage in that particular activity or prayer or whatever, then you can go ahead and do so on your own time. So in the first session last Sunday, we were focusing on the meaning of refuge, right, and how to take refuge in the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. And we spent some time concentrating on the merit field, visualization of the merit field, and the meaning of the refuge prayer, since that's really the cornerstone, the foundation of the Buddha's teaching, right? It encompasses the entire path all the way to enlightenment just in the refuge prayer. And so what we'll do today is continue by focusing on how to generate and to maintain our faith in the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. So what are some of the things that we can do as part of our daily practice to really make sure that that fervent enthusiasm, is maintained in our practice? So that's the overall goal for today. And we'll talk a little bit about the different schools in the Tibetan Buddhist tradition. So there's a little bit of a survey, a little bit of an overview, just to try to help put the different, there are a lot of names in Tibetan Buddhism. There are a lot of schools. There are a lot of teachers, such a rich, deep tradition, right? So I wanted to try to give you just and I'm sure this is a review for many, many, many of you, but, just to try to set the groundwork so we know where things kind of fit in, like the pieces of a puzzle. And that way, again, for your further, study, then you would have sort of a starting point for looking into these other traditions as well, these other schools, because it's so important to be able to understand all of these different aspects of the Buddha's teachings and the way that it's been interpreted and practiced, right now. And then we'll talk about how to choose a spiritual teacher, and then how to, what's sort of the etiquette, the advice for how to respect a teacher. And then at the end, I think we're going to do then we're going through some of the basic prayers, the daily prayers. We're going to go through each one. So in the last class, we focused on the refuge prayer, as I just said. So then we're going to move on. In this class, we'll talk a little bit about the four immeasurables, and then the seven limb prayer. We'll go through each of the seven limbs just quickly. Just the short version of the seven limb prayer. They're very extensive versions. And then the mandala offering, and then the dedication prayers. And then at the very end, we will hopefully have time to do the it's a daily meditation on Shakyamuni Buddha. So it's a beautiful guided meditation that was originally written by, I believe it was Lama Zopa Rinpoche. So that's sort of the culmination. It will pull together everything that we've been talking about. We'll actually practice it in that meditation. So that's what I was thinking of doing today. And as we go along, if there are any questions, please feel free to stop me and jump right in. That's a lot of material to cover. I think we can do it. All right. So just as always, there's a little bit of a introductory meditation just to sort of set our intention, set our motivation. So in order to generate, faith in the triple jewel, then one of the core points then is turning away from worldly concerns, turning away from mundane problems, mundane attractions. So as we've all heard over and over again, we all want happiness. Right? Nobody can disagree with that statement. We all want happiness. Every living being wants happiness. And we all hope that whatever happiness that we have now will not come to an end. Right? And instead, we want every happiness that we currently possess to increase, to grow, to spread, right? We want more and more and more. So two chocolate donuts are much better than just a single chocolate donut, in my experience, because I love chocolate donuts. And having a growing circle of friends and followers is definitely better than a shrinking circle of friends and followers, right? And so as we know, it's not the object itself that's the problem that causes our mind to become disturbed. It's the grasping to the object of attachment that causes us so many problems, right? So for example, this is a funny example, I think. I have an old Mazda, little old Mazda 3 that, I absolutely adore. That's my dogmobile. So even though it's falling apart, things break every day. I'm still very attached to it. Very stubbornly refuse to sell the darn bucket of bolts. At the same time, I have a BMW, an old BMW that I inherited from my father. And to be honest, I really dislike it. So, you'd think that it should be the opposite. But the bottom line is that what's causing me trouble is my attachment, right? My inability to let go of either car, for that matter. So it's the attachment, right? And so we hope that whatever, we will attain, whatever happiness we desire, will increase, right? Even though, what we want, what we desire, may change from day to day, right? We may want, one thing today and something totally different tomorrow. But we want it anyway, right? Oftentimes, we might want something today that we didn't even know that we needed, right? Didn't even know that you needed it. All of a sudden, God, I got to have that. Happens all the time. And our lives progress, when we're young, from being like, go, 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 right? Lots of energy, go, 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 get out and get it. And then when we're middle-aged, it's like, well, still going, but maybe it's like a slow go, right? So we go from go, go to slow go. And let's face it, eventually, when we're old, we're like a no go, right? So we go, 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 slow go, and then no go. can't move, can't go anywhere, can't travel the world anymore. But that desire, that attachment is still with us. So somewhere along the line, we might conflate temporary happiness, the donuts, the devotees, etc., with a sense of, purpose or meaning in our lives, right? They can get lost, right? So even though, even the most shallow person, somebody, who still thinks her life has meaning, right? Even if it's only a kind of, like boozy, bubbles and confetti kind of self-gratification, right? And some people may never really question whether or not their lives have meaning. They just tell them what society says is meaningful, right? Until they're confronted with some kind of disaster or catastrophe, you may never really ask that question. Or more likely, that question arises, but it's like a little whisper, in the back of the mind that you just kind of brush away, cast aside, that doubt. And so it's important, the reason why we're here today is it's important to recognize the difference between this kind of, temporary happiness, right? The donuts, dollars, and devotees, that kind of happiness, from the long-term happiness that we can attain if we choose to, right? And so temporary happiness includes the attainment of life as a human being, right? And we made that, or we are humans, or even gods. But long-term happiness, as we know, it goes much, much, much further, right? That's complete liberation from the sufferings of samsara, all the way up to full enlightenment, complete awakening. So that being said, we have to take advantage of this precious human rebirth and put it to good use, by practicing the spiritual path that has been so carefully and beautifully and in great detail has been laid out for us to follow, right? Because that's the path that frees us from misery, from sorrow. And for that reason, we must aspire to attain liberation, to generate bodhicitta, the mind of enlightenment, right? And to realize emptiness through the cultivation of wisdom. So a big part of our daily practice, in order to fulfill those aspirations, a big part of our daily practice then is to deepen our understanding in these areas, right? Because as our understanding improves, right, then so does our faith, so does our confidence in ourselves and the path, and our resolution that this is what we need to be doing right now. And through daily practice, then we realize that, our lives are becoming a little easier, a little better. And as we start to experience, the benefits of our practice, then, it just kind of reinforces our commitment, reinforces our effort, our joyful effort to practice the path. So going back to this idea of renunciation just quickly, so it's renunciation then is like it's turning away from, sort of the cheesy, the AI generated tinsel and glitter that we're so bombarded with. All our senses are bombarded with all the time if we're not careful, right? Unguarded senses. And so this enables us to realize our true Dharma potential, which is to be able to, break free from the mud, to soar across the sky, to streak across the sky and achieve this complete awakening that we so desire. And so, part of that at the gross level and a material level is just seeing that the more stuff that we have just creates more problems. And so we make a conscious effort to clean our minds, to clean our homes, to get rid of all that clutter and unnecessary stuff, to let go of our attachment to all the worldly concerns that society says are so important, like, the big name, the big bank account, being praised, all those attaboys or whatever they're called, and enjoying, all the various types of hedonistic pleasure. And so we need to remember that we are born empty-handed, right? We don't even have a name when we're born. And then likewise, when we die, we go to the next life empty-handed. So above all, we're not just talking about stuff. What we're renouncing really is our self-cherishing tendencies, right? That habit of me, myself, and I. We're renouncing our root ignorance and all of the negative emotions, right? Attachment and hatred, jealousy, greed, malice, and the like, right? It's that meddling mind, that we're so expert in, that meddling mind that just has to jump in, and fix everybody else's problems, even if they don't ask you to, especially if they don't ask you to. It's that meddling mind that says, oh, I got to do it because I know what's right. I couldn't possibly be wrong. I'm just going to go in and do it for them. I do that all the time. Doesn't even occur to you that you might be wrong and that, the argument that you end up in was really because you jumped in and did something. Somebody else didn't really want your help, right? It's that meddling mind. I know better than you. So breaking free from attachments creates both physical and mental space, right? And so along with the spaciousness, as the mind quiets, right? Doing your meditation process, through your sitting meditation, as well as your daily practice when you're off the cushion, right? So along with that spaciousness comes silence, comes peace. And as that becomes more profound, more stable, right? And we are creating the causes and conditions for the close placement of the mind. So we can say, in a nutshell, that renunciation brings us satisfaction. It brings us fulfillment. It brings us this state of ease and resilience. So before you go to sleep, right, then you can ask yourself, how was my Dharma practice today? Did I make an effort to distinguish between my needs versus my wants? Was I happy to accept the hardships that might be involved in doing something virtuous for somebody, or right, for the sake of the Dharma? Was I able to go that extra mile to help somebody? Was I more patient? Was I more compassionate? Was I more gentle? Was I more forgiving? Both to others as well as to myself. Above all, you examine your thoughts, examine your actions, and ask yourself, did I hurt someone today intentionally? or even unintentionally with that meddling mind. And then you can also ask yourself, of all the things that I did during the day, how many of those actions, how many of those thoughts were purely self-centered, self-centered gratification, and how many were specifically to benefit others? How many things did I do for me? How many things that I did were specifically to help others? And then for the things that you might have done that were harmful to others, and you can engage in do some purification practice, right? And so, the teachings tell us that life is like a dream, right? So if life is like a dream of our own creation, then through our Dharma practice, let's ensure that it's a beautiful dream, a beautiful, virtuous Dharma dream, instead of an uncontrolled nightmare. So we have that choice. Okay, so in order to practice the Dharma's the Buddha's teachings, right? We need a good relationship with a spiritual teacher. And so, the Buddha taught many different methods to meet the needs of individuals, right? That's one of the beauties of the Buddha's teachings. It's not like a cookie cutter, one size fits all approach, right? Instead, there's such a wide variety of different methods for taming our minds, right? And so, there's both the Pali tradition, and then the two, greatest categories, so to speak, would be the Pali tradition, which is also known as, the Hinayana tradition or the Theravadan tradition, or now it's more commonly referred to as the fundamental vehicle, or Pali tradition. So the term Hinayana in particular, or lesser vehicle, that has sort of fallen out of favor. So you won't see, it's not translated in that way as often as it used to be. So there's the Pali tradition, and then there's the Sanskrit tradition, which is also known as the Mahayana or perfection vehicle. And then, you can think of the migration of Buddhism to different countries, primarily, in terms of where those teachings spread. And then another way of thinking of the Buddha Dharma is in terms of the content, so to speak. So, we can talk about the method aspect of the path, and then the wisdom aspect of the path, right? And so the method aspect is primarily the compassion-oriented mind training, how to become a bodhisattva, all those teachings. And so, you might have heard of, and I'm just going to name drop here again with the goal of, if you've heard of these, then great, go back and reread, restudy, remeditate on them. If you've never heard of these, then okay, here's a starting point, just a small tip of the iceberg, starting point for your studies. And so there's the 8 verses of mind training by Geshe Langri Tangpa. There's the 37 practices of a bodhisattva by Gyaltse Togme Zangpo. And then there's the 7-Point Mind Training by Atisha or Geshe Chekowas, like they're different commentaries. And then Shantideva, A Guide to the Bodhisattva's Way of Life. And then there's Asanga's Bodhisattva Bhumi. So many of those are texts that Geshe Darge has taught on here at Dona Kumpanling at various points over the years. And so those are very important in terms of helping us, understand. Oh, the Wheel of Sharp Weapons is another one, right? So those are texts that are important for understanding how to abandon, our ordinary worldly way of existence, what mode of being, and instead, orient ourselves to where we want to go, which is to act and behave and think, and be eventually a bodhisattva. Okay. So then on the wisdom side of the path, and the main topics or subjects that are covered would then be, of course, emptiness, but also, I'm going to lump in there mind and mental factors, right? So the inner science, so to speak, the way the mind works, logic, right? Sort of a nitty-gritty logic, and the epistemology or philosophy. And then there's also the Vajrayana vehicle, right? So the tantric teachings, which combine both method and wisdom in a way to actually practice and become, the essence of the union of bliss and emptiness. So then, how are those, teachings handed down to us? How are they, taught? So then within Tibetan Buddhism, there are 4 schools, right? There's the Nyingma, Sakya, Kagyu, and Geluk traditions or schools. Each has its own monastic institutions. There are teachers, lineage lamas associated with each of these and texts. But of course, the essential dharma is the same, right? There's no difference. And so ideally, it's really good to study from all of these schools, right? As long as, you don't get confused, which is my greatest problem. And so, I had a great time, when as I was preparing for this, just going back and trying to read a little bit about each of the other traditions, because I don't know a whole lot about them. And one theme that came up over and over again is how, all of these wonderful lineage lamas, how they studied with, lamas from the other traditions, right? I think maybe the differentiation between, Sakyas and Kagyus maybe wasn't so rigid back then. It was just like, oh, okay, I'm going to go study with so-and-so, right? Anyway, so again, just a little bit of name dropping because, and a little bit of an overview to introduce this, topic, and maybe to help, because I know if, you're out there on the studying online, like all of us are, it can get very confusing because there's just so much information out there. So the first is the Nyingma school, the founder was credited and is asserted to be Pema Sambawa, who came to Tibet in the 8th century. 2 of the contemporary masters then would be Patrul Rinpoche, who was actually alive from 1808 to 1887. And then more recently, Dilgo Khyentse Rinpoche, who many of his books are available in translation now. Wonderful, wonderful teacher. Had a great influence on many of the contemporary lamas. And so that's the Nyingma school. What else should I say about that? a lot of emphasis on meditation, Dzogchen, in the Nima tradition. That's the oldest tradition. And then the next is, yeah, this is really brief, the Sakya tradition, which was established by the great Indian yogi Virupa in the 9th century, who is also one of the 84 Mahasiddhis. And then the lineage passed down through the centuries, eventually to the Kun family in the 11th to 12th century. It's known for scholarship as well as practice. The present head of the Sakya school is actually, so now the 42nd Sakya Trizin, because His Holiness, the Sakya Trizin, the 41st, who is very well known. He's traveled around the world. I'm sure many of you have seen him or listened to his teachings, right? So he passed his title along to one of his sons. So it's His Holiness Ratna Vajra Rinpoche. And the main text or texts of the Sakya tradition are the Lamdre teachings, right? The Lamdre teachings. And what's wonderful about, so the Lamdre teachings are divided roughly into two. The first is the triple vision. So that is the teachings related to Sutrayana. And then the second part is the triple tantra, which explains the Tantrayana path or Vajrayana path, centered around the teachings on the meditational deity Vajra. And so what I wanted to point out for the Sakya tradition is that in just down the road, I think it's in Poughkeepsie, right? I actually haven't been there, but there's it's Tsechen Kuntrabling. So there's a big center, established as the holy seat of the Sakya tradition. It's very close by. And so their teachings, in fact, His Holiness the Sakya Trizin has visited there on an annual basis. He'll come and give teachings. So that would be something to definitely keep in mind to try to visit, I would think. I'm still hoping to go. The other good thing is that I'm taking a class that's offered from the, it's called the Sachen Foundation. So it's this Sachen, Sachen, Sachen Foundation. It's going to be a year-long, actually the program it's going to be a 5-year program. It's online. It's like an hour per week, and it's taught by His Holiness. In the following year, 2026, he'll be teaching the remaining chapters, 7 to 10. 2027, he'll be teaching Madhyamaka philosophy. And then in 2028, he'll be teaching the Buddha nature or Uttara Tantra. So highly recommend this. I think they're very, very, very nice study program. Very accessible. The teachings are very, very clear. He uses very clear language. He speaks very slowly in English, fluent English. It's been a very good experience. So that's my little spiel on the Sakyas. And then for the Kargyu lineage, the Kargyu order was started or traced back to Tilopa, who lived from 988 to 1069. Another one of the great 84 Mahasiddhis of India. And so in order to, the main teachings then after Tilopa were Naropa, and then Marpa, then Milarepa, everybody knows Milarepa, right? And then Gampopa. So the Kargyu tradition places a lot of emphasis on meditation and Guru Yoga. The main or most well-known teachings then were Naropas, the 6 yogas of Naropa, and the teachings on Mahamudra. Okay, so some of the most well-known Kargyu masters right now would be the 17th Karmapa. The 17th Karmapa's name is Ugyen Trinley Dorje, right? So he's a young man and a brilliant teacher. From my own limited personal experience, another wonderful teacher is His Eminence Garchen Rinpoche. Garchen Rinpoche, he's the head of the Jikung Kargyu order. He was imprisoned in a Chinese labor camp for over 20 years and came out, as a wonderfully, kind, compassionate, excellent teacher. And so some of his, he's still teaching. He's quite elderly, quite frail at this point, but it's good to keep an eye out to see if you can see him. He used to tour the United States every year. But some of his books, some of his teachings are available. And then the Yungay Mingyu Rinpoche, who also studied, both with Sakya and Kargyu masters. So he's very well known. Many of his teachings are available online. And finally, Dzongsar Jamyang Khyentse Rinpoche also studied with Sakya and Kargyu masters. Also has written books and made films. Excellent teacher. Both of them, Yungir Mingir Rinpoche and Dzongsar Jamyang Khyentse Rinpoche, are good because they, can talk about the Dharma in not just an insightful way, but, it's humorous. It's very, I was going to say stabbing, like they really know the Western mind, and they know how to, really turn our minds around, in a very sharp, no punches spared kind of way. Very, very good teachers. So then the Gelugpa tradition, hopefully, so I was going to say in the interest of saving time, I'm going to have to speed up here. So the founder, so to speak, is Lama Tsongkhapa Losang Drakpa, right? So the Gelug tradition is known for emphasizing, deep and intensive study as well as practice, right? The 2 most famous and influential students are Gyaltsab Dharma Rinchen and Kedrup Gelik Palsang. The major monasteries are Sera, Ganden, Drepung, and Tashi Lumpo, and the tantric colleges are Gyume and Gyuto. So Khyentse Rinpoche, who is the spiritual director of Kumbhan Linglen, was from Sera Monastery and also Gyume Tantric College. So if you hear those names in passing, that's what is being referenced. So the point is that each of these teachings, each of these orders, show us the entire path to enlightenment, right? And so each has So we know that for the Gelug tradition, then Lama Tsongkhapa's books, the Lamrim teachings, right? The Lamrim teachings, the great stages on the path to enlightenment, sort of the comprehensive um, um, teaching on everything that's needed to get from where we are now to enlightenment, right? And so likewise, for each of the other schools, like for the Nyingma tradition, one of the books or teachings that's referenced very often is Patrul Rinpoche's Words of My Perfect Teacher. Same intent. The Sakya tradition has the triple vision. And the Kargya tradition, I'll look for Gampopa's jewel ornament of liberation. So how do we choose a spiritual teacher? So the word lama in Tibetan means somebody who's heavy with good qualities, somebody who's superior to us in spiritual attainments. The teacher's role is to share the Dharma knowledge, share his or her Dharma knowledge, and to guide the students' character development, right? So it's not just, words, but it's helping to inspire that inner change, that inner transformation, so that the person becomes, kinder, gentler, and basically so that our minds become subdued, become tamed. Our emotions are not just controlling us all the time. So we can have many, many, many lamas, right? Your main lama, your root guru, so to speak, is the teacher who you are closest to, who has offered you, the most, beneficial, advice, teachings. So there's a gradual progression, right? You could start out with somebody who teaches you the Vinaya, if you're a monastic. It teaches you the Four Noble Truths or the Four Truths, who gives you refuge vows or lay vows or monastic precepts. Then you can move on to the Mahayana vehicle or the perfection vehicle. You can have teachers that introduce you to the Bodhisattva's methods, where you think of the teacher kind of like a Buddha, right? Here you're taking the Bodhisattva vows. And then finally, you may be interested in tantric teachings and in the Vajrayana vehicle. And so here you would be taking, teachings and empowerments, and the teacher would be in your mind. Then you could learn to see or train to see the teacher as a Buddha, right? But, that's down the line. And so we're not going to talk about that right now. So some advice on how to find a proper teacher, right? So you think, okay, I've got to find a teacher. So with some advice on how to go about doing it, because it's very important. It's a really, really big decision, right? Not something that you enter into lightly. And so some advice that is given by the Dalai Lama and Venerable Thubten Chodron in a book called The Foundation of Buddhist Practice. They suggest that we attend the teachings, given by somebody, but without thinking of him or her as your teacher. You can just go to the teachings, like this teaching, right? You can just come here and listen, and don't think of me as your teacher per se, right? You can think of somebody as an instructor or a facilitator, like in the secular sense, without the big T. And then, just as you would for any kind of teacher, right? You're going to observe the person in his or her conduct in daily life, right? Are they being, kind and gentle? How does that person get along with the students, right? What kind of, is there harmony in the community, right? Get to know the students. What kind of people are the students like? Ask them about the teacher's qualifications, right? And then check the teacher's knowledge. That's really important, right? Check the teacher's qualifications, because there's so many people on the internet right now saying that they can teach, whatever subject it is. Well, very important to find out who is their teacher. Do they have any teaching qualifications? Who did they study with, right? Before you blindly think that, the person knows something, right? Really, really important to do that. Just like you would check out if you had to go to a doctor, right? Or even a car mechanic, whatever it is, you're going to spend your time trying to figure out as much as possible about the person's background qualifications. So that's really, really important here. Is the teacher's motivation, more like, dollars and cents, or is it a sincere interest in helping the students, right? Finally, the Dalai Lama recommends, asking the teacher directly in conversation, one-on-one, right? If he has or she has, eliminated all observable faults. And, what are, the person's qualifications with respect to the Dharma, with respect to observing and following the Vinaya, right? Practices of ethical conduct. So that's quite something. So, in a nutshell, what we're trying to find is a teacher who has, excellent ethical conduct, a kind heart, somebody who's renounced personal fame, who has more good qualities than faults, and is more interested in the future lives than in the current life, right? Somebody who is totally devoted to others more than to him or herself. So really, really important to take your time and get to know, whoever you're going to be listening to and thinking about. So now we're going to start going into some more of advice, in terms of the etiquette and some of the terms of address. This is more of the how-to stuff, and I apologize. I'm obviously running out of time. So if we could go to slide 10, Tripula, that would be great. So again, just some terms that you might have heard and you might have wondered, what exactly do these mean? So a Rinpoche is a reincarnated Lama. It's a title also given to somebody for his scholarship, right, for his scholarly attainments, versus being, a tulku, right, a recognized reincarnation of like that. So our teacher, Gyurme Khensa Rinpoche, he's given the title Rinpoche for his scholarship. Then there's the Geshe, the term Geshe. So this is a degree that's awarded by large monasteries or nunneries. There are many different levels. So the top level is the Geshe Larampa degree. So, that's attained after many, many, many years, rigorous course of study and examinations. Kempo, you might have heard, Kempo is, I think in the Kagyu tradition, is an name of an academic degree, but it can also mean an abbot. Another way of saying that would be just Ken, right? So you say the current abbot would be like Ken Rinpoche. There's often Ken Rinpoche, so-and-so. And then the former abbot, then you might wonder, I've heard Kensur, right? Kensur, right? Gyurme Kensur Rinpoche, Losang Jangpa is our spiritual director, right? So Kensur means the former abbot. So somebody who was an abbot but is retired. You may also hear the term Genla. Genla just refers to, like a monk or a teacher, you could say. And then the la part is the honorific form of address. So gen like teacher. Genla, so it's a former way. So if you don't know somebody's name, you can say Genla for a monk. And then for a nun, so honorific for nun would be Chula. So you can, or most people just say Anila. So that is, sort of common language. You just say Anila. If you want to be more polite, you can say Chula and the person's name. So what do you do? Let's say you have an opportunity to meet a high lama. Okay, this question comes up sometimes. So what do you do, right? So let's say you have an opportunity to meet Khensa Rinpoche when he comes to visit Dana Kumpanling, right? So you got to make the appointment, right? Make an appointment ahead of time. Don't be like, oh, I think I'll just drop by. Better to make an appointment, show up on time. Then you're going to walk into the room. You're going to prostrate 3 times, right? Then you're there with your offering envelope, right? Or you can bring food and flowers and all that good stuff. And then maybe you have, if you have an envelope, then you put it on the table, respectfully. And then you have your kata. And one pro tip is that there are many, many different qualities of katas. And the monks, this is something that Geshe Ngawang Kelsang was telling me about when he was here, right? So they're higher quality fabrics, right? So you want to get the best kata possible, of course, right? And so then you can have the kata with the opening, towards the teacher. And then, you offer it like this, right? And then, if you offer it to the teacher, you're kneeling, right? And then the teacher will, return it to you, put it over your neck, right? With the blessings. And then let's say, afterwards you come downstairs and you're having a cup of tea or something. So anytime, the teacher comes into the room, then it's respectful to stand up, right, in his presence. Right? So you want to be lower than the teacher. But, if the teacher is sitting, then you should not be standing. So that would be the opposite case. Then in a teaching situation, right, so let's say you're here and the teacher is coming into the room to give the teaching, right? So then you should stand up, right? Before the teacher comes, you should be standing up. You can go like this, have your hands, palms together, or you can have a kata in the same way, like this. And then you wait until the teacher, prostrates 3 times and sits down. Then you prostrate 3 times and then you take your seat, right? So then after the teaching, then what do you do? So let's say you want to make an offering to whoever's, like Geshe Darge or Khensa Rinpoche is here, right? So one pro tip, okay, you don't hand the envelope to the teacher, right? You should, put the envelope on the table. And then if you have a kata, you would have pre-wrapped the envelope in the kata, nice, very beautifully folded and everything. And then you just put the whole thing, you can put the whole thing on the table and then kneel and leave, or you can you can offer the kata, to the person, and then they'll put it. Teacher will put it over your neck, right? So the point being that if you're offering an envelope, then just put it on the table. Don't give it to them. Hand it to them. And then when the teacher is about to leave, right, after the teaching, and when the teacher is about to leave, then again, you're going to stand up and wait respectfully until the teacher exits the room, right? And then you can just kind of turn and watch, as he or she leaves. Okay. Any questions? I apologize for rattling on and on and
on. Yes, I've got a question, Ani.
What's that, Richard?
Hi. I think you said nuns we will call chula formally.
Chula. Uh-huh.
Is that chu meaning dharma, that kind of chu?
I believe so.
Oh, thank you. And then the second question is with that putting the offering. So if you came to a teaching and you wanted to give an offering, you'd place an envelope on a table when the teacher arrives in the room or at the end of the teaching. I've seen the offering lineups at some of the great teachings that you've had at DNKL or after. But I'm just not clear. You would never put the offering into the hand of the teacher. Is that the etiquette? You'd always place it on.
That's what I was trying to say. Yeah, and usually, you would offer it at the end of the teaching.
Right. Okay.
Unless the specific context would, matter. So if it's a request for the teaching, like maybe at the beginning of an initiation or something, then sometimes the head of the center or the designated authorized person will make an offering, before the teaching starts.
Right, right. But so when you were discussing this just a moment ago, it was
Yeah.
more to come to visit a High Lama or a teacher, and it was just you and that teacher.
Oh, right. Yes, exactly. Yeah. Yeah, the very first. Yeah.
So you never place it in their hand. You place it down, and then you kneel, offer the kata, and proceed like that.
Right.
Okay. And
Right.
I don't want to take up more time, but I'm curious about the other types of geshes. I mean, you mentioned the Larampa geshe, which is like Arge, I suppose, and some others. What are the other geshe? Do we know others who are geshes but not Larampa geshes?
I know okay, so I know of one other kind, which is where you just memorize texts, and then you memorize the text, and then you recite the whole text, in front of the assembly of monks. So you have to recite it, perfectly.
Wow.
And then
Yeah.
it would be a geshe, but I can't remember that, or I don't know the exact title.
I'm sure we can.
It's geshe something.
Yeah, I'm sure we can Google it. So there are four types of geshes, I believe you said, or did you mention that? Or is
I
that
don't know
true?
if they're, yeah, I don't know the exact number. It'd be interesting to go back and find out. We can ask, yeah, the Geshe Ngawang Paldenla who's here. I'll ask him afterwards.
Thank you very much, Annie.
You are welcome. So I think we will skip ahead here a little bit and very bravely try to tackle the topic of the basic daily prayers. So what I was hoping to do in this section was to introduce the prayers that you might want to consider, including in your daily practice. So we will skip over refuge because we did that last time. The next thing would be the four immeasurables, which I think we're all familiar with. That's on slides 11 to 14. So I'll just read the first one, because when we do the daily meditation on Shakyamuni Buddha, we will actually be reading this whole prayer. But what I wanted to point out is, so we'll read the first one. How wonderful if all sentient beings would remain in the equanimity that avoids the partialities of attachment and aversion. May they remain so. I must make sure they remain so. May the gurus and deities bless me with the ability to accomplish this. Right? So this is the long version of the four immeasurables, right? But you'll notice that for each of them, right, the next is how wonderful if all sentient beings would have happiness and the causes of happiness. May they find them. I must make sure they find them. May the guru and deities bless me with the ability to accomplish this, right? So it's immeasurable. Here we've put equanimity first. Immeasurable equanimity, happiness, love, compassion. The point being that the first line then is the wish, right? How wonderful if, blah, blah, blah. The second is I'm calling it resolution. May they never be separated, right? Or may they become free, right? The third is taking personal responsibility. That's very important in this prayer. I must make sure that, this happens, that this wish comes true, right? And then the fourth one is then you realize, wait, I can't do that by myself, can I? So it's the request for support from the gurus and deities, okay? So that's definitely a prayer that you would want to include, whether you do the longer version or this expanded version. Very, very important. And on slide 15, we've got the seven limb prayer. Again, this is the very abbreviated version of the prayer. So I'm taking this translation is from Lama Zopa Rinpoche's daily practice, daily prayers publication. And I'll have the reference in the slides. We can put the PDF, in the chat. And then if you're here in person and you're interested in getting a copy of these, let me know. I'll give you my email address and I'll send it to you. So if you're interested in the longer version of the seven limb prayer, you can Google it, or In Pabonka Rinpoche's book, Liberation in the Palm of Your Hands, he has cited the longer version from the Royal Prayer of Noble Deeds. So the first limb is homage. So I prostrate reverently with my body, speech, and mind. Here you're visualizing, countless bodies, your bodies, like since beginningless time, right? We talked about prostration in the last class, so I'm not going to go through this. You're making prostrations to countless Buddhas. You all know how to prostrate. And then in terms of, and I'm not trying to make, I'm going quickly, but I'm not trying to make light of or, devalue each of these practices, right? Each one is a complete practice in and of itself. So the second then is offerings. So I present clouds of every type of offering, both actually arranged and mentally emanated. And so we remember from the last class the visualization of the merit field, with the Shakyamuni Buddha in the center, surrounded by all of the lineage, masters, and then all the Buddhas, the tantric deities, all the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, right? And so we're making offerings in such a vast way to accumulate merit and create the causes and conditions for our eventual Buddhahood. Very, very, important practice. In fact, Pabonka Rinpoche says, even if you make extensive offerings to the merit field with some kind of like evil intention, not quite kosher intention, you're still going to achieve infinite amounts of merit, right? Just because of the merit field, the power of the merit field, right? Because it includes all the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. So you can offer, material offerings, right? The best and the finest, flowers, incense, music, everything that you own, right? But the most supreme offering then would be your practice, right? That's what the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas care about the most. So it's upholding the Dharma. It's developing the pure wish for enlightenment, right? It's putting your studies into practice, right? Being kind to others. When the Buddhas, see you doing that, right? And they're always they're always watching us, right? Then that's what makes them happy. That's the supreme offering that we need to bear in mind, okay? And so it's more than that, it's our root virtues from, our virtuous stock of karma since beginningless lives, all that precious virtue, right? Transformed into, the offering substances, okay? So, you can put a bowl of beautiful flowers, a vase of flowers on your altar. And it's not just a vase of flowers, right? It's the vase of flowers, which is what you're really thinking is that, wow, this is all my virtue, my purified, perfect virtue in the form of, this beautiful orchid, let's say, beautiful orchid, right? Because there are lots of orchids here. That Venerable Triphala has become the expert orchid gardener, right? All of his virtue. Okay, so offerings, that's something that we have to do on a daily basis. You're giving away everything that you own, right? No sense of this is mine, okay? You give away all of that to the Buddhas, so it's not yours anymore, right? It's for the benefit of all sentient beings. So remember that, right? The next one is confession. Yes, I confess all my negative actions and downfalls collected from beginningless time, right? Because why is this so important? We know that the sins are all our non-virtuous acts. Those are the source of all our suffering, both in this life and in future lives, right? So if something goes bad in our lifetime now, some disaster befalls us, happens to us, then that's the result of negative karma ripening, right? So if we don't want to suffer, then we'd be stupid, we'd be foolish not to engage in the practice of confession and purification while we still can, okay? We need to destroy the seeds of future suffering before they bear fruit, right? And so the extent to which, we're successful in purifying a misdeed, whether we consciously are aware of it or maybe we're not consciously aware of it, It depends on the power of our intention, and not just the power, like, oh, gee, I should really do that. Yeah, I don't want to suffer. It's more than that. It's the actions that we actually engage in to do the purification, right? Like you can say to yourself, yeah, I really should do 100,000, prostrations, but then you don't get up and do a single one, right? Okay, that's not good enough. You have to actually do the purification, whatever it might be, right? And so, we talked about in the context of the Vajrasattva practice, Vajrasattva with the 4 opponent powers. So reciting the mantra, engaging in the visualization and meaning, and then generating refuge and bodhicitta, that sense of regret, profound regret, doing the practice, and then restraint. Then rejoicing. Rejoicing, what's the next one? I rejoice in the virtues of ordinary beings and Aryas, right? So this is one of the best practices because it involves only mental effort, right? Only mental effort. So we rejoice in the good actions of others, right? Completely free of any sense of jealousy, right? You just rejoice that somebody else has engaged in a positive action or has Geshe Darge. Geshe Darge had an opportunity to meet with, he had a private audience with His Holiness the Dalai Lama in India just recently. He sent a picture, right? Wow, is that something to rejoice in, right? Without thinking like, damn, I wish I was there. I'm so jealous. You just rejoice in his extraordinary, opportunity to meet with His Holiness the Dalai Lama. So free of any type of jealousy, you can rejoice in your own past lives' virtue, your present life's virtue, as well as, as I just said, the virtue of others. Next is the request to the merit field to remain. So please remain until the end of cyclic existence. Don't go away. Don't leave us. Please don't abandon us. We need you here right now, right? That's really important. You can't just, it's important to verbalize, to tell the teacher, right? Hey, please come, and to do everything you can to deepen that connection, to maintain that connection with the teacher. Otherwise, teacher will go wherever, he or she thinks she's needed, right? Or he's needed. That's where they're going to go. So if you don't have that rapport, hey, going to be harder to get those teachings, right? And then dedication. I dedicate my own and others' virtues to the great enlightenment. So dedication is super, super important because by dedicating our own root virtues to enlightenment for the sake of all sentient beings, it becomes melded into or merged with the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas' stainless intention as well. And so once it's, steeped and merged with the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas' pure intention, with their dedication of their virtue to enlightenment that was so successful, right? Then our virtues will not be destroyed. It's protected. It's kind of merged, and it's safe, right? So if we get angry, which happens, more times than we care to admit, right? If we get angry, then we don't have to worry that our precious virtue is going to be destroyed. Right? And so our virtue needs to be sealed with emptiness, right? We hear that all the time, sealed with emptiness, right? So we meditate or we remember that the action that we did that created this virtue or this virtue itself lacks inherent existence. The goal of enlightenment lacks inherent existence. And the sentient beings for whom we are dedicating this virtue, they also, just like us, lack inherent existence. Okay, so sealed with emptiness, merged with the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, storehouse, what's the wrong word? Infinite, virtue, then our little virtue is good, happy, all good. Okay, very, very important. I'm not trying to make light of this. Very important to take the time to do the dedication. Okay. So that's the end of the 7-limb prayer. And then the mandala offering. Okay, so you're going to do that on a daily basis as well. Slide 16. This is the shortest version of the mandala offering. And we do this here, very, very often. I think you all are very familiar with this. This ground anointed with perfume and strewn with flowers, adorned with Mount Meru, the 4 continents, the sun and the moon. I imagine as a Buddha land and offer it. May all transmigratory beings enjoy this pure land. Idam Guru Ratna Mandala Kam Niryata Yami. Sorry, I'm trying to shorten this. So I'll talk a little bit more about the mandala offering then, because it's very beautiful and it's very and a very important part of the practice. And so the word mandala then means to take the essence, right? And so essentially what we're doing is we're visualizing the entire universe. We're giving away the not just our little world, but all the universe, the entire universe, like the universe that we can't even really imagine. All the planets, all the worlds, all the sense objects, everything that we're attached to, right? All of our possessions, all of our things, we're offering all of that. All of our virtue is offered to the merit field that is with us. Okay. So this is a practice of generosity, as well as a practice of purification. And so there's a very short and very humorous and very clear explanation of the meaning of doing the mandala offering that Venerable Thupten Chodron gave, and it's posted on the Study Buddhism, the former Burzen Archives website. So I wanted to just show that now, because it's only like 5 minutes, 7 minutes.
Three and a half or something.
See, only 3.5 minutes. So maybe we can all,
Well,
I think we have time for that, because she's such an excellent teacher. You're really going to enjoy this. Put your fingers in the pretzel position. The mandala offering is usually used is we're thinking of the universe according to the ancient Indian cosmology, which was explains when you hold your hands like this. So your 2 ring fingers touching, that's Mount Meru, the center of the universe. Yeah. And then there's one, two. You do it, and that represents, the
because there's rings around this, around Mount Meru, and, you know, of the sun and the moon and all these different auspicious substances and figures, you know, according to ancient Indian culture. So the idea is that you're taking everything beautiful in the universe, which we watch for ourselves, yeah, and we're offering it to the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. So it's a way of relinquishing our craving and our attachment and our self-centeredness that's always saying, oh, I want this, I want this, and it's mine, everybody, and the whole world. So it's practicing generosity. It's also very helpful to us. Because if we look at everything we have and think, I've already offered it to the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, they're letting me use it. So I need to use those things to benefit sentient beings because that is what is closest to the hearts of the Buddhist Bodhisattvas benefiting other beings. So, you know, I have my precious tissue box. Oh, this is a beautiful tissue box, isn't it? Oh, you know, I have read and even some different kinds of things here, and now it's not fine. So, but actually, no, it belongs to the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. So I can't really go like this because somebody else will teach you the Buddha would say yes. How many do we need? Yeah. But if I say, can I go to half? Yeah, because I'm not going to very long later. Okay. So, you know, it helps you to realize that actually nothing really belongs to us.
Okay. And then, you know, if you're interested in actually offering the mandala, if you have one of the mandala sets, so there's one over here on in front of Yimei Conservatory, and there's one in front of His Holiness the Dalai Lama. I've actually found a wonderful short tutorial, you know, with a beautiful, clear video on how to arrange the substances, you know, on the mandala rings, right? And so, in slide 18 has these references. So it's got the first references from the lamayeshe.com website, and it's how to offer the mandala actual practice, you know, step by step. But and that's, you know, very, very clearly presented. But sometimes, you know, just seeing a visual is also helpful. So Miffy Maximilian, she's done 2 videos. She's a FPMT registered teacher. And I watched both of them, and they seem accurate. So those are worth checking out. But we're not going to show them now because if you're not actually doing the practice, you don't have the mandala set, then it's not going to, you know, really be too helpful. So that's that. So we're not going to have time to do the. We'll have to do the daily meditation on Shakyamuni Buddha later, next class, because it takes probably 20 minutes. So that's okay. I wanted to try to talk a little bit about overcoming some of the maybe the barriers to joining in on For example, the long life prayers that we do here for His Holiness the Dalai Lama and Gyaltsen Rinpoche the first Saturday of every month. So the practice, if you haven't joined, centers around the visualization of green Tara, and then the praises to the 21 Taras. And then we do, the mandala offering, the long mandala offering. And then we recite, excuse me, the long life, prayers to His Holiness and Gyaltsen Rinpoche. And so, doing those long life prayers, is extremely important in terms of, again, forging and maintaining our relationship with our teachers. It creates, so much, it eliminates, so many obstacles and obstructions, to having a harmonious relationship that we may have created in the past. It creates, all of that positive karma to be able to maintain the relationship in this present life, as well as, into the future. So it's, if you're not familiar, I think one of the barriers might be, if you're not familiar with doing that type of, tantric practice, it may just be, a little bit confusing, or, maybe doesn't feel, too comfortable for you. Then I hope that that might be something that we could, do a separate class on, or, just come and give it a try. And I think for the coming long life prayer, the first Saturday in February, maybe what we can do is, we'll have images, an image of green Tara surrounded by the 21 Taras. So if you're not familiar with what green Tara looks like, or the 21 Taras, then that would really, I think, be helpful. So and then one thing to do as we're, I'm just trying to encourage you to come. If you have trouble visualizing the all of green Tara at once, right? The holy body of green Tara. There is an image, but it's hidden behind the Maitreya Buddha statue. It's just to focus on, one aspect, maybe just the green Tara, her face, or just her hand. Usually, it's easier to start with the face, and just hold, one particular aspect in mind as we go through and recite prayer. But it's really, really important to do those long life prayers. Geshe Dargay is always encouraging us to go ahead and do that, to build that relationship now when our gurus are still alive, right? Versus, when our gurus have passed away. And then saying prayers for the swift return, right? Well, that's also very important for the same reasons, but, why not forge that relationship, now when the guru is still alive? Okay. Really, really, really key practice. If you have any questions about the practice, if you, the link is available on the website. If you look in the files, area, the prayers area, or it may even be linked, at the bottom of each calendar event, the long life prayer. If you want to read it ahead of time, and then if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to Venerable Tripala or to myself, and we'll try to answer that for you. Any questions?
Anila?
Uh-huh.
This question is actually for Chappelle. I was wondering because today was such an extraordinary overview. I would like to listen again because there are a lot of resources and references. So do we know when this will be posted?
I'll have it up later.
Thank you so much.
Sure.
Thank you, Ani.
You're welcome.
I've got another question, Ani. Can you hear?
Yeah.
Oh, I think you mentioned something, and I apologize. I couldn't hear it clearly. I think you said mandala. I think you said something about, I heard the words meaning and to take the, and I just wonder if you could rephrase that or say that again so even I could understand it. I'm very interested. Thank you.
So the Tibetan term for mandala is kor, which is translated as taking the essence. So the essence that we're taking then is the whole path, all the way from, guru devotion. You think of the whole Lam Rim. So taking the essence is the whole path. So that's the benefit of offering the mandala with the pure motivation is that essentially you're absorbing, the whole path. You're offering the whole path.
Thank you so much.
And there are different, versions of the mandala offering. So the one that we could do on a daily basis is just this one verse. But then, when we do like the long life prayer or Georgia Puja, any of the other ones, pujas, then we're going to do the 37 heap mandala offering, right? So like Om Benjo Bhumi Ahom Rangchen Sergey Saji, right? So I didn't have time to put all of that into the slide, but you can go back and or listen to watch those videos, right? The Max, what's her name? Miffy. She's got such a funny name, Mixie Maximilian. She goes through and explains the long mandala offering. Then there's also the mandala offering with like 25 heaps, and then there's one with the 23 heaps. Which was the 23 heaps is actually the one that Lama Tsongkhapa did. And so I put that in the slides, that particular verse. So that's on slide, which slide is this? Mandala of the 23 heaps. Doop, 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 doop. Yeah, it's slide 17, which it doesn't actually spell out, each of I tried to add them up, but anyway, you can do that too. Obviously better if you start with the 37 heaps so you know the full scope, and then you collapse it down to the more succinct version, but you would know exactly what it all means. So it looks like we are pretty much out of time, so we're going to go to the dedication again. Again in the slides, I've got more on slides 20 and 21. I've got all of the references to slide 20 has some general all-purpose terrific resources. I should have put Study Buddhism up there, but that's like my go-to, Study Buddhism, the Berzin Archives, as well as the Daily Prayers publication that I was referencing, and then I guess in our next class we'll do the meditation on Shakyamuni Buddha. Okay, and the book references are there on the following slide. The ones that I kind of rattled off. Very, 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 wonderful things to resources, but not just resources, but okay, so the dedication prayers. So here we are on slide 22. May the precious supreme bodhicitta not yet born arise. May that arisen not decline, but increase more and more. And then His Holiness the Dalai Lama. Short, long life prayer. In the land encircled by snow mountains, you are the source of all happiness and good. All powerful Chenrezig, Tenzin Gyatso, please remain until samsara ends. And Khensa Rinpoche, so that your holy deeds may bless the nature of fortunate disciples, and that the Lord of 10 Powers teachings and realizations spread. You shine the lamp of logic for intelligent minds, spiritual friend who shows the way. To you we pray. Okay.
I just have two announcements. One, we're doing
Thanks, Anilo. Bye-bye.
Bye.
one, we're doing a food drive here for people in our community in need. You can donate non-perishable food items at the box in the back. And second, we're missing some items from our library, like they haven't been checked out. And there's at least one book that's not supposed to be circulating that's missing. So if you have them, please sign them out or let me know that you took them, and I'll do the sign out sheet for you. It was difficult to convince Geshe Darge to have a circulating library, so it would be great if we could continue to keep this the way it is. That's it. Thank you. Okay.
All right. Thank you so much. Hope to see you next week.
Thank you.